14 then, when we started to White Bluff School, and I am 87 now. So you have
Figure
somebody
that out.
has to get the calculator out.
Now, you went to school, you started out at
Taylortown.
Taylortown. And where was the Taylortown?
It was right on the end of the graveyard. You remember where Mary Deal used to live?
Yes.
The old building, part of it's still there. Okay, Taylortown School was right there. You could turn in, and then they let the church have enough to build a church building on the other end. They all met together.
Yeah.
You know, church would meet on Sunday, and we'd have school Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday,
Yeah.
Thursday, and Friday.
Who taught out there? Who do you remember teaching?
Elizabeth Harris.
When I went, Sandy Bibb, Vanessa Laser, and Robert Corder, and Elizabeth Harris.
Elizabeth was
Mr. Early's
Mr.
daughter.
Early's daughter.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah, there were several of those girls.
Yeah.
Sure was. And when did you go to White Bluff to school?
That's what I was talking about when I was 14.
Yeah, when you started White Bluff.
When they closed down the 8th grade, you know, when I don't know if that was the last year they had any school out there now. No, I believe Joyce England taught out there, Lawrence's Joyce.
Yeah.
She taught a year after I left Pine Knob, you know, went out there. And she taught, but then I think they had some confusion out there over after that. And they just decided the county shut it down.
When did the William James School? Do you remember when it started?
No.
But did you go up there?
Yeah.
You went to school
Soon as I
from
left
Taylortown.
yeah.
Then you went to William James.
And I think Mr. Jenner Corlew, I don't think I ever walked all the way to school, but Mr. Jenner Corlew had an old blue bus,
Mm-hmm.
and he drove it down Trace Creek Hollow and come back up by where the church is now, and picked up everybody that lived the other half. We lived as far on down the road as he came after us, but everybody walked up there to the church house and rode the bus. There was probably 12, 15 that rode the bus.
Wow.
On into White Bluff.
Was he the only bus driver then?
Yeah, yeah. And I don't think, the county may have hired him, but I don't think the county owned the bus, kept it up or nothing like that. I think he just bought him an old bus. I don't know for sure, but I think that's about what it was.
He lived where
Almost where
White
the funeral
Bluff
homes is.
Chapel
Yeah,
is now.
Yeah.
There was a 2-story house there.
yeah,
And at one time, the old post office
yeah.
was in the front of that building as well. That was right on the street. They
Now,
were very close together there.
The first time I remember the post office was down on the corner
That's right.
where Jack and Neil owns that
Mhm.
building, I think now, Jack Brooks.
Mhm.
That's the first time I remember the post office. You remember that back before that? So he's 6
Jenna
years old.
Corder used to live somewhere over that close to the funeral home.
Who did?
Jenna Corder.
Yeah, he lived right next,
Yeah.
right where that is.
Yeah,
Mhm.
but I don't remember the post office being over there, do you? It's South Central Bell was down there on the corner where I remember the post office being.
And who ran it? Do you remember?
I don't know, but we used to go down there and sit. That was the most fun. They didn't care. They were just pulling buttons and punching things. It wasn't like it is today. But we'd go down there, us kids would, and sit and watch them operate that thing. Switchboard, I guess what you call it. I don't remember.
That was behind Jackie's.
No, it was right on the corner there, wasn't it?
Was that on the
It
corner?
was next to Jackie's brick building.
That's
Okay,
right.
Okay.
That house is still there.
I believe Beulah Graham was there.
And Blanche.
Last year, yeah.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
Beulah and Blanche.
Yeah, that house is still there when I drove the bus because I picked up a kid to come out right in the back door just about it. Yeah.
Tell me how long you drove the bus.
47 years.
Yeah. Tell me about that.
And I wish I had 47 more.
Oh, good grief. You got an award for
Yes, I
that
did.
one.
I don't know who did this, whether the state or the county or who sent me to Pigeon Forge. Now, this ain't got much to do with White Bluff, but they sent me a message that they wanted me to go to Pigeon Forge for 3 days, 2 nights, and they was going to present some awards, and there was 2 men there that had drove longer than I had. But I was the only woman, and they said I was the only woman that had ever in Tennessee drove that many years.
When did you start driving the bus?
I started driving the same year Denise died. She died the first day of April and was buried on the 3rd. And just a day or 2 after that, Wagner Duke called me to come up to the schoolhouse. Well, I thought one of the others, Kathy, some of them got hurt or something, you know. So I took off up there. He said, would you be a bus substitute for us? Miss Lois Jean Hill's brother was teaching up there, Larry, and they was having to take him out to sub in like in the afternoon, have taken him out of his class. I said, I don't know if I can drive a bus or not, Mr. Duke. He said, here, take the keys, run up and down the road, pull in somebody's driveway where you know you're going to have to turn around anyway, and turn around and come back and we'll take you to get your license. And that is all that I ever had, no training, none whatsoever. And then my boss got to be a retired highway patrolman. This is what was funny. Mr. Roberts, he said, Miss Stacey, don't work like that. I said, what it did for me, I've never had nobody take me out and train me how to do a pre-trip inspection. Yeah, never got a ticket, ain't never had a ticket in my life, except a warning ticket one night. Guy got behind me down here to cemetery between there and Dickson. And I was going to school, down to vocational school. I was going to learn I didn't know how to operate a computer, didn't even know what they looked like. And I was going to school till 9:30 at night, and I was coming home, and this car dropped in behind me. I got speeded up a little bit to get away from him. Well, my man, that car on the road, faster I got, then he finally had to flip his lights on. And he said, you kind of speeded a little bit, and I said, well, you scared me. I was on my way home from school, and I didn't know what you was up to. So he said, well, just don't. Well, watch what you're doing.
Yeah.
Be careful from now on. He didn't write me no ticket. You didn't know. But yeah, it was late, 9:30 at night for me. Having to get up next morning, 5:30, be on the bus
that's
ride.
pretty late. Get up that early.
Yeah.
Brad, did you go to school at Taylortown too?
I went there 8 years, that's all I didn't go to White Bluff.
You didn't tell you about him as Jimmy Sullivan.
Tell us about that.
Oh, well, Jimmy Sullivan, I used to have to take care of him out at the school.
He was in first grade and Fred was in the 8th.
I don't know, 7th.
Okay.
Anyway, he wouldn't let nobody do it. He was 5 years old. He wouldn't let nobody do anything for him but me. If he got a bar in his foot, I had to get it out, or whatever happened. And I guess I got him started off pretty good. He turned out pretty good.
I think so.
Yeah.
How do you remember the town when you were growing up?
Well, when I was growing up, they was building a new highway through it. And you couldn't walk across it for the mud. It was so muddy. And that's the way, I remember it like that. And I remember when it burnt down.
Do you? Tell us about that.
Melvin Mullane started it. He was trying to weld a gas tank with gas in it.
It didn't work too well, did it?
If I'm not
Which if it had
mistaken,
been
we got to be
full,
right up
it would've
on
been
the fire
better.
of White Bluff.
If it emptied, it'll
I believe
blow
it,
up. But he started. And Mr. Bill Stiles, he used to be a magician. He went around shows and stuff. He had all his equipment stored in the back of that thing. All of it burned up.
Oh.
And that it was a service station right on the corner. That's where it started. I was in the Navy, and I was discharged, and I was in Nashville, and it was raining so hard that I couldn't get home because Harper River had blocked off 70 highway. Buses couldn't come. That's the only way we had to go buses. And we read in the paper the next morning, White Bluff was burned down. And I wasn't there, but I come in later. And it burned all those stores down, and James building, all that kind of stuff.
It changed the town.
Yeah.
Sure
Yeah,
did.
changed. And they had just built what they call a Texaco station and a new store. New store wasn't, wasn't selling anything in it, but it broke all the glass out of the heat, because it didn't have a fire department. And there was a bucket brigade that took care of it. And that burnt down. James Myatt's store burned down. And there was another store up above the James building, it burnt down. And I believe about 2 or 3 houses over across the street. Older reader, he had a store. He dealt in Indian artifacts. He had a lot of Indian arrows and all that kind of. He bound for this department. He had a walls full of.
Was the Red Star Cafe up on that side, on the same side that the fire was on?
It was in, wasn't a Red Star, but it was a restaurant in the James building. 2 doctor's offices and a pharmacy. And a little clothing store.
Agnes Jordan had a.
Miss Agnes Jordan had like
Agnes Jordan,
yeah.
lilies and pretty things, pretty things.
Do you remember who ran the drugstore?
Dr. Chapman, Malcolm Chapman. Dr. Chapman's boy.
You remember what doctors were around then?
Dr. Spencer and Dr. Chapman were the only one. Dr. Spencer he got his training in the Army. He never did go to school to be a doctor.
Wasn't he the one that they had to go get the night me and my twin were born? We lived down.
Dr. Chapman.
What was from White Bluff?
Come down there.
Okay. We lived down on Gilbert Taylor's farm. Now it's Gilbert Taylor's farm, but Harper River, is up Ben Creek down there.
Yeah.
We lived down in there, and me and my twin was fixing to be born. Daddy had to walk to White Bluff and get the doctor. And the time he got back, the kids was here already, both of them. And he come in, he asked my mom something about the babies, and she said, there they are. She had done delivered them, laid them away on the side of the bed.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
How many brothers and sisters did you have? Do you remember?
Okay, I think I had 6 brothers and 4 sisters.
Okay.
Jesse, Lawrence, Edward, Clayton, Pine Knot, Marvin. That's 6, and Pine Knot's Jean, yeah. And Laurel, and my twin Lois, and Melba. That's all of them. 3 sisters, maybe 4, maybe 10, yeah.
Yeah, there you go.
They didn't give me time to add. Well, the night they called me from Dickson radio station, they didn't give me time to. And I said, I think I had 10 brothers.
They didn't give you time to think about it.
No. I mean, but it's fun.
Brad, how many was in your family? How many siblings?
I had 3 brothers and 4 sisters.
Who were they?
Well, you probably knew all of them. Lola.
Yeah.
She's living out of Taylortown. She's only 99 years old. Robbie, at Hardin Goodman's wife, and Laurel, Lindsay. And then I had one that died on Christmas Day of pneumonia. And then Archie Stacey, you might not have knew him. He lived away from here most of the time. And Verdi, me and Wade.
Who was your mom and dad?
My mama and dad, my daddy was Paul Stacey. My mama was Ira Bratton. She was Andy Bratton's daughter.
Miss Andy used to live on top of Book Spring Hill. Just going out of White Bluff.
Yeah.
His granddaddy. And Curtis and Robert and their boys lived there until they passed away.
Curtis, Robert, and Walter.
Walter, okay. Where did Curtis live?
Chicago.
Okay. You can tell we're getting old.
That's all right.
Just 6 years difference.
And where did you grow up? What part of Taylortown?
Off in the hollow, you wouldn't be able to find it. Go down Taylortown Road.
Yeah.
Go turn off on Stacey Road, and then you start going downhill after that. And down, then up another hill, and then downhill. We were raised over there several years, and we lived over right on Taylortown Road. We built a house over on Taylortown Road where Colonel Cothran used to live.
Yeah.
We built that house. And Daddy built about this size. Didn't have no closets and no partitions in it, just had 2 befores and everything. He built that. And then him and my mama separated, and my twin sister bought that house then.
And who was your mom and dad?
Orwell England was my dad, and Irene Gentry was my mom.
Did they grow up here?
She was down around Burns, but yeah.
Probably Baker's Works.
Yeah. You remember Alton Gentry?
Mm-hmm.
His daddy and my mother were brothers and sisters.
Wow. How do you remember the town from the time that you can remember up to now? How has it changed?
A lot. I remember they'd come to our house one time with a casket going to the graveyard. Somebody had died, and they had to wait a while. The road was just tore. They was fixing to build us a new road, and it was tore up so bad that the ambulance was just like this, trying to get it. You remember who that was?
No.
It wasn't Miss Thelma Brown, I don't know. But somebody's going to be buried out there in town. But the town of White Bluff, we wasn't up in town. Back then, kids didn't get to go to town on weekends like they do now, or at night and everything else. But in the daytime, Saturday, we looked forward to coming up and sitting at the Red Star Cafe, you know.
How did you get there?
Walked.
You did?
Yeah, a whole bunch of us get together and walk. Yeah, we didn't think nothing about it. I used to ride a horse. We ground had our meal in the flower ground.
Where did they do that?
I don't remember where they ground the meal. I brought it to Mr. James.
Sanders had a mill across from James Myatt's store back down Taylortown Road.
But they would, the boys was probably working and doing something else. But I remember riding a horse with 2 sacks that's tied together like this, you know, and hanging over this horse, and brought them up there. I had to stay pretty well all day till they had time to grind that. And I went by, and the Osbrooks boys, I don't know whether you ever knew them, black and white, we called them, twins. They lived between me and White Bluff, out on that ridge coming out
Hawkins Ridge.
Hawkins Road, yeah. Wasn't many houses out there. They had a house with a dirt floor. That's how poor they were. And I stopped trying to get their daddy to let one of them ride with me. Come get my meal on flour. No, he didn't do that. No, what I might have done. I was kidding. But he probably had something else for him to do. But it was a lot different than, we used to go to White Bluff on, probably not just on Saturday, but probably at the end of the month, maybe when my daddy got a check.
Yeah.
He was in the CCC camp. And we would go up to James Myatt's and get groceries. My oldest brother got married, and we lived down on Roy Street's farm, down where the street bridge is now. We lived up on top of a hill there. And my sister got married. My oldest brother got married, Jesse. And Mama fixed up what she thought was a wedding supper. And we walked over to Shaplet, Harper River Bridge up down there, from down on the river, to meet Laurel, our oldest sister. She's working in Nashville. She's riding a Greyhound bus back and forth. Me and my twin walked up there, and we said, oh, we got the best supper tonight. We got cheese and crackers, and just, we were so tickled at Mama. She said, I have that every day. She was working in Nashville, so she'd just come home on weekends. And I thought that was so cruel. That it just took the air out of us, think that we had something exciting to tell her. And she said, oh, I have that every day.
What did she do in Nashville?
I don't know what Loretta.
Most of them worked for Old Brian or some of the garment places.
Yeah.
Or one of the stores. They probably made $10 a week.
My first job in Nashville was I think at Wars. It's been on the news lately. I thought about going up there and talking to them. And I remember these black people come in and would ask for something to eat. and they wouldn't serve them. And there was a black woman behind the counter, though, doing the cooking. And she said, well, you'll let her cook it, but you won't let me eat it. And that kind of rung a bell in my head. What's going on here? You know, I didn't know nothing about civil rights, nothing like that. But I did wonder why.
What did you do for fun when you were growing up?
Worked.
Besides work?
That's what I done.
Yeah? Never went swimming,
Oh,
never
yeah.
played. Yeah, well, let's
If
see.
we got around the river, we would.
Uh-huh.
But wasn't like to do. We used to play baseball and stuff like that. And it's about it. About all. I worked when I was about 12, 13 years old. I worked for a man, and he had a team of mules, and I had a team. And I worked for him for 3 months and a half a day. What do you think I made?
I don't know.
$30.25. And that was about the wedding.
And how long ago has that been? How old were you?
It's been about 80 years.
Wow. But things were a lot less
And-
expensive.
She was talking about not letting her wear shorts. Mr. Hubert Hall, do you remember him?
Guidance daddy.
Yes. Mhm.
He was the deputy sheriff. And up there where they call the Texaco, a car pulled in. And a woman got out of it, had shorts on. He told her, either get back in the car or I'm taking you to jail. And it should be like that again.
Well, the jail would be so full,
Yeah,
you could,
that's the truth.
I don't know where you would have to take the people that didn't need to go and put them in there.
But you can look on TV and stuff now and see that they've changed a whole lot.
Oh, yeah.
But he told her, he said, you don't get back in the car, I'll put you in jail. And she had to get back in the car.
When do you remember, what was the first time you remember watching TV?
Wow. I can remember the first time we used to hear radio. We used to gather on Saturday nights to go listen to the Grand Ole Opry.
Where did you go?
One of Mr. Raymond Taylor's, Gilbert Taylor's daddy.
You know, one had a radio.
He's the only one in the whole community that we knew of had a radio. And they let us all come in and sit down and listen to the Grand Ole Opry.
Wow. Did you ever go?
But,
Listen to the Grand Ole Opry.
yeah, I went over there.
Yeah.
That's where everybody gathered on Saturday night.
Yeah. Tell me about the Taylortown grocery.
Well, it started out, Mr. Clarence and Miss Thelma Brown. They built just a little one-room building, wasn't it? And it had just whatever they could get in there, you know, like bologna and cold drinks and bread and a few canned stuffs and gas out front, 29 cents a gallon for regular and high test, we called it back then, it was 31. And I don't remember, but just before they moved up there, they had a little grocery store down at their house on Trace Creek Road. They had converted just part of their front porch, I guess, into a little store. And you was talking about them playing ball. They had a little ballpark out here at on Akron Hill Road.
Yeah.
And we would all, as soon as we leave church, all us young folks would go down there and they'd slice us off a piece of bologna and a couple of pieces of bread and RC Cola. It was big back then. And we'd get on the back of that truck and had to sit down. I don't remember who drove the truck, you?
Raymond Taylor was probably the only one who had one.
But they'd take a load of us out there to watch that ball game on Sunday and down here on
The ball field, that was at Akron Hill.
it's not far from Mr. Petty's house.
That's right, and it's all grown up now.
Yeah.
You
Oh,
never
yeah.
know it's there.
Yeah.
It's on the left of Akron Hill Road,
Yeah.
and it's now it's part of the park. I
Is
think.
it, they
Isn't that
included it
right?
in the park?
I think so.
Okay,
It was then.
I think the park
okay,
took it over
yeah.
then. So tell me about the stores you remember.
Oh, I forgot. I got off on ball game.
That's okay. That's all right.
Well, in White Bluff, you had
No, Taylortown he's talking about.
I'll tell you, Jack Goodman had one. He had a little store.
Where was it?
It was in his house down there. And
Did he have one when we had the little store in White Bluff?
no, but he had one before that.
I didn't remember that one.
Yeah. Because during the war, Billy Goodman run away from the army. Okay.
And they had a
And they had to come out and search for him and look for him. Coroner Brown was in the army, and they had a store. And whatever which government service had come after them, they come out there to coroners and arrested him. Because the only information they had was that his parents owned the grocery store. And he was out drawing a bucket of water, and they arrested him.
They arrested Coroner?
Yeah, because that's all the information they had. They never did catch Billy, I don't think.
Billy was across the road. They dug his family was scared to death of storms, and they had a storm cellar over in a field across the road from their house, and that's where he went when he come in from the army. He hid out in that storm cellar there. You wouldn't notice it driving down the road. There's a storm cellar over there.
Who all ran the Taylortown grocery?
Well, after Mr. Clarence got sick, was that the reason we took it? When Mr. Clarence got sick, we bought it in '59.
Mm-hmm.
And we built onto it because we had 2 kids, 3 kids, so we built behind a place where we could cook and eat, and bedrooms and bathrooms, had to dig a well. There wasn't no city water out there then, was there? We had to dig a well. Of course, we were real close to church, so we just right out the door, right to go to church. And it was real convenient if people come home with us for dinner.
Well, yeah, you're right there.
Yeah, it had food, they had the cooks and everything. But we stayed there until some of them just about put us out of business. We was neighbors to everybody, and if people wanted to, there were some people who lived down on Harper River that were blind, some of them. They would walk by there for a month and ask for credit, you know. But they'd go on out here on top of Buck Spring Hill to a bootlegger, and when they get their check, that's where the check went, instead of coming by and paying the grocery bill first. But, you know, they probably like whiskey better than they did food, I don't know. But, we didn't stay there too long. You couldn't make no money in a place like that. We couldn't make a living at it, so we decided to give it up, and we sold it to Miss Alice Callahan, didn't we? L'Oreal Taylor, Sarah bought it.
Oving Taylor bought it.
Miss Oving Taylor bought it one time. Alice Callahan bought it one time. L'Oreal Ford bought it one time. I don't know. I can't remember who all bought it.
The first person I can remember was Miss Oving.
Miss Oving bought it. She may have bought it from us. I can't remember.
I think she did.
Yeah.
Tell me about Miss Oving's family. Who was she kin to? Do you know?
She was,
The Gill, wasn't she?
she was a Gill. She was Eddie and Arm and all of them sister.
Yeah.
Really?
And her daddy didn't live long after they had moved out of Van Lair, out in Taylortown. He didn't live long after that, but she married Jay Taylor. He was Burrow Taylor's boy, and I remember one thing about Burrow Taylor and Jay Taylor. They didn't get along. And I seen Mr. Jay sharpen his knife up and said, "Sharp again." He says, "Oh, I'm run up on him and work it." That's how they got along. But Burrow Taylor wasn't a man anybody got along with. He cursed a lot. You didn't do that back then. One time he was going up the road and stopped at Dave Brown. You know where Lawrence England lives now?
Mm-hmm.
There was an old house there, and Dave Brown lived in it, and it was pouring down rain. And Burrow come in cussing and got on the porch out of the rain. Dave said, "Get out of here. I'm not going to let you sit here and slide and lightning to kill us." All that cussing.
Things have changed a lot.
That same man, Mr. J. Taylor, we got a chance to get electricity. Nobody had electricity back then. They was gonna run electricity out, hatch up everybody's houses. He wouldn't let them cross his land with electricity. Well, there's people on the other side wanting electricity. And they had to go around him, and how they
They
got
went on the other side of the road.
across the road and go down and get back over on it.
He enjoyed his contrariness.
Yeah, yeah.
Tell me about Mary Deal.
She got a rooster.
Yeah.
We left to go down there from school. Talked to her, Miss Molly, who was her mother, and she was in bed all the time. And we went down there one time, and Mary was sitting in the kitchen eating, and she was dropping little crumbs and stuff on the floor. And that rooster was pecking around. She handed him some. I said, here's some onion if you want an onion to go with that. The kids enjoyed Mary. And she used to come to the store. She knew what time the work hands was coming in the evening, what time her best chance was to get a cold drink. Because we sold, cold drinks, and that was rare back then. And she'd come in, we had a bench sitting there, people would sit down on. And she'd come in there about working time, and just about every evening. And then men folks said, Mary, you want a cold drink? Yeah, might as well. And they'd get her a cold drink, She loved that.
I'd have to make them quit buying them. She'd drink 4 or 5. Tell how many they'd buy. And I said, no more, you can't buy them.
She lived next to the church.
Right
There.
next
Is
to
that
the
where her mother or?
She lived with
It was
her
a
mother.
one-room house,
Yeah.
wasn't it?
Well, she had a little bitty kitchen on
Yeah.
there. A little bitty kitchen, yeah.
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 Did she grow up out there?
I didn't know her back then.
As far as I know, she never did live anywhere else but right there.
I remember her walking to
To White
town,
Bluff?
to White Bluff.
Everybody did.
Yeah, and she carried a tow sack on her back and would walk to town and had a cane.
And you could pick her up, carry her home, and in 20 minutes you could pick her up going the other way.
That's right.
My twin sister lived where Mr. Howard Gentry lived, right where you turn on Sunset Drive. My twin sister was living there at the time, and she had some fresh turnip greens. And Mary just walked in, just went to the door, knocked on the door, went in. And after a while she said, Piers, I smell turnip greens cooking. Lois said, yeah, would you like to have some turnip greens? And she said, yeah. And, she just stopped at people's houses. She didn't bother her.
I remember her when I was little, and she continually walked up and down Taylortown Road, come to White Bluff, turn around, and go back, like you said.
Her mother was Henry Taylor and Lige Taylor and all them sister.
Really?
Yeah. And she was somebody interesting to talk to, her mother. We used to go down there. We'd ask her, say, tell us about the old times, Aunt Molly. Oh, I don't feel like it, boys. We sat there for 3 or 4 hours listening to her. She'd just take off and start talking.
What were some of the things she told you? Do you remember?
One of the things I remember, that she was out washing clothes. They had to carry them out in a kettle and boil their clothes. And said they was out in this kettle boiling clothes, and said some renegade Indians came up on them. That's how far back she went.
Yeah.
They were Indians that had broken loose from the tribe. She told how many, 3 or 4 of them came up on them.
And did she live where Mary was, where Mary's little house was?
Yeah.
Was that her
I never knew them, but when they lived anywhere else.
No. Her daddy was John Deal. He worked, well, most people that had a job worked for the tailors. They don't have money enough to pay them. And if he was down 2 miles from home, seen a good pole of wood for cooking, he'd carry it home. He'd just go out and chop it down and carry it home. Nobody cared. Back then, nobody would have said anything about it, not like it is now.
Wow.
I remember I don't know whether she pulled her off the bed, whether if she fell off, the old woman was in bed all the time, Miss Molly.
She was blind.
Yeah. And sometimes you just cross the driveway was a school. I don't remember whether there was a driveway there or not, because didn't have nothing to drive. She'd come over and get some of us kids to go over and help her get her mom back up in bed. And what tickled us, you know.
Yeah. You got out of school?
Yeah.
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 How old was Mary? She was old when I was young.
She was old when I was young.
She'd been old all of her life.
Yeah. I think she was born old.
Yeah.
Now, I really don't know. I don't know where there would be anything that would tell how old she was.
They were real character people
Yeah, they
of
were.
the town.
Mm-hmm.
Let's see, there was Mary, Mag Cullum, do you remember her?
I just started saying, Mary and Mag was a pretty good match.
Yeah.
Mag would be walking along and find somebody throw the funny papers down, and she'd just sit right down on the side of the road and sit there and read the funny papers.
Yeah. You remember where Mag lived?
I don't.
What, do you know where Ralph Taylor lives?
Yes.
She lived down there for a while. Different places right there in Taylortown.
She carried a tow sack too.
She found that newspaper she's talking about, she carried it home with her. You couldn't get through her house with the stuff stacked up down there.
That's what my mom and dad said. They would talk about Mag Cullum.
Yeah.
And Betty and Lula.
Yeah.
What do you remember about Betty and Lula and all of them? Clyde and Sarah?
I didn't think do nothing to them.
He's not telling everything just right like it ought to be. Tell him about the old vehicle he drove out there, y'all.
He had an old T-model, yellow, and it was a truck.
He brought Lula to school.
He would drive it out there and bring Lula to school, and Sarah would stay with her, take care of her. She wouldn't go back home. She'd stay in the schoolhouse with her.
Sarah did?
Yeah, and whenever he'd come get her, a few of them meaner boys would run out, and when he started to take off, they'd pick it up off. They could pick it up off. Now I wouldn't do nothing like that.
No.
And pick it up and let us wheel spin, and he'd never get mad, never say anything. I said, "Wow," they'd set it down and he'd go home.
There was a lot of interesting people.
Yeah. Ed Daniel, the black guy, you know, down at Belltown,
Yeah.
used to run what we call a huckster wagon, the covered van of a
Yeah.
thing. And you could buy a BB-bat, big stick of candy that long for a penny. And we all tried to find us a penny that day that he'd come on Friday, I believe. But everybody would line up out there at that truck to get them. Yeah, that wasn't all he had, but everything was just about a penny. But he'd drive all the way from Belltown and come out there. So
I'd buy stuff on the credit front. He said it to me. He didn't hear it.
Wow. Do you remember milk deliveries?
Well,
we had our cows.
Yeah.
It hadn't been too many years ago since they used to deliver milk to that bottle.
Yeah.
The Griffin boy used to deliver milk.
He did. I remember when I was little, they seal test had a route, and they would go around and deliver milk, and then pick up. Everything came in bottles.
Had to return the bottle.
Had to return the bottle.
Miss Joyce, how did you and Mr. Fred meet?
We went to school together. He's 6 years older than me, so he was probably in the 8th grade when I was in about the 2nd. And I remember, I don't know who was the teacher out there, I can't remember, Mr. Lester Ellis, I believe. They would climb a sycamore tree or something in the backyard, but anyway, we didn't. But I scratched my leg pretty bad above my knee. And they told, the principal told Fred, the teacher, that they ought to go home and clean it up for me. Well, he wasn't going to clean it up, and I wasn't going to let him clean it up.
How old were you when you got married? What year did you get married?
I got married in 1950.
There you go.
Look at that, that's Fred's birthday.
Really? Wow.
1925. Yeah, he went to Michigan. There wasn't nothing to do in 1950 around here. No work, hardly. Well, I worked at the dime store in Nashville, which had to ride a Greyhound bus up there, so he still didn't make anything. I think they paid me $16 a week, but I don't remember what it cost to ride the bus. But I live pretty close to Guy and Elihu. And him and Elihu went to Michigan to work, didn't you? We'd been dating a little while. And Elihu found a job and found a house for him and Guida. And when he come in, he told me, he said, if you want to go back up there and find you a job, he said, if you'll just buy the gas, which wasn't much, back up there, he said, you can go back with us, and then we'll let you stay with us until you can find you a job and a place to stay. So that's went up there. We went up there too long. We decided it'd be cheaper just go home and get married. So they were separate houses. But that just buying that gas was an expensive trip. I rode in the back seat with all the kids. Them kids was all over me. You take about an 18-hour drive now. We went straight through. We didn't stop. We didn't spend the night nowhere.
What did you do up there?
What did I do? I went to work for a place called Murray Corporation. They made parts for cars. And he was working for a car dealership, wasn't you?
I worked for Templeton Axle for a long time. They were the first one they were patented the two-speed axle. And anybody that had a two-speed axle had to get it from them. And I worked for them. One of the best places in up there to work. It was worked piecework. And we would work and make more than they did in the car factories. But then I went to work, it closed down after their patent run out. I went to work for Cadillac, building bodies, Cadillac bodies. And then I worked some for Diesel, Detroit Diesel, which is GMC. They made diesel motors.
Wow. When did you come back here?
52. We spent everything we made coming back home, so we decided to come back home.
And what did you do when you moved back here? Where did you work?
I guess I worked in the grocery store.
I believe so. We moved to West Nashville. I bought a little house up there, didn't I, on Newton Avenue? Yeah. And I think you worked for a grocery store, and I worked for Mr. Wise and Mr. Greenfield. We used to be right up in front of that park up there.
Centennial.
No Centennial, no. Right here. Just past that Catholic church on the left-hand side. Used to be a school there, libraries now. I don't know what's all there now.
That's okay.
That's okay, yeah. I went to work for them. They sold clothes, piece goods, and just household items.
It's been a good life, hasn't it been?
Yeah, pretty good. Yeah.
Anything else you can remember you want to tell us?
It's probably a lot of things I can tell you.
Midnight tonight, we'll think of something.
Yeah, you'll think of a lot of things.
Why didn't I
That's
tell
all
them?
right. We're glad you came, and
Well, I
thanks
wish-
for your time.
I wish we could